When you think of Dremel, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Of course it's rotary tools, but did you know they make a heck of a lot more tools? Well, I didn't either until a recent trip I made to one of the big box stores. And surprisingly enough, these Dremel tools are quite affordable. So join me today as we take a look at some of the latest Dremel tools. So today we're taking a look at 3 of the latest additions to Dremel's tool lineup, and not one of them is a rotary tool. Now, just like Kleenex for tissues and Jacuzzi for hot tubs, Dremel has become the generic name for rotary tools. But surprisingly, this tool company is much more than that, as they just expanded their lineup with these blueprint tools. And I just purchased 3 of them, with 2 of them being less than $100 and the most expensive one being under $150. And no, this is not a sponsored video. I paid with my own cash to purchase all of these items. So let's dive right in today and start to take a look at these 3 latest additions to my shop, these Dremel blueprint tools. The first item I picked up is the Dremel portable saw station. Let's give it a look. Speaking of saws, I saw my ex the other day when I was driving down the road. Funny how the words I'd hit that changes over time. Now, this is the most expensive item we're taking a look at today, coming in at a whopping $149. So this is an item that might be perfect for a smaller shop or even somebody that deals with a lot of smaller pieces. One of the first things you'll notice if we get it out of the box is this thing is completely self-contained, and it comes in a nice carrying case with a handle. But let's unlatch this hard shell carrying case and see what comes inside. So one of the first things you'll notice is this handheld circular saw, and this is the meat and potatoes of the system. If we remove that circular saw, you're going to find the battery charger, and this is held in place with a little bit of Velcro. Now, when I first saw this charger and battery, I was very excited, as it appears to be the same battery as what you get with a Milwaukee M12 system. But that excitement was very short-lived. Even though these batteries are designed the same, they made them incompatible, which is really kind of a disappointment, as all these brand-specific batteries is getting out of control. Now, the charger and saw are stored on one side of the tool, but there's also another side. Let's take a look at that. Here you'll find a dust collection chute as well as a 2x4 cutting guide, which we'll get into in just a moment. Now, before we move on to what else is stored inside this case, I did want to mention that I'm not really impressed with the containers for all these items. These are simply made out of thin plastic, but I'm sure that's in an effort to reduce the cost of this tool. But these 2 plastic containers aren't the only storage with this tool. Let's open up both wings of the tool to see what's underneath. On the side of the saw, you're going to find what they call a bevel razor, and we'll get into that in just a moment. This item is held into place with a storage plug, and if we look below that razor, you'll find another storage plug, and this is so you can store extra saw blades. On the other side of this case, we're going to find a couple of more items. First off, in the plastic container, you'll find 2 clamps. Now, as I was taking a look at these clamps, my fears about that plastic container have already come to fruition. As you can see, it's already cracked, and I haven't even used this thing. But let's look past that right now and take a look at what's stored right next to those clamps. Here you're going to find 2 items. You'll find a workpiece support that's held into place with 2 of those storage plugs. But if we remove that workpiece support, you're going to find another item, and that is a parallel guide for the saw itself. And that about covers all of the accessories that come with this tool, but let's start to take a look at the cutting surface itself. With the saw removed, we can take a look at how this cutting surface comes together, as it's actually folded in on itself on both sides. Once you've opened up both sides, you can unfold each wing to give you your full cutting surface. Let's take a look at the cutting surface. The first thing you'll notice is there's a vertical and horizontal scale that reference the miter gauge at the very top of the tool. You'll also notice some miter lines as well, giving you a reference point for 15, 22.5, 30, and 45 degrees. And at the very top of the cutting surface, you'll find a small white box that allows you to write down your measurements as you go to make your cuts. But let's take a look at how this cutting station works. To understand that, we first need to take a look at the saw itself. As we mentioned earlier, this saw is powered by a proprietary battery that's 2 amp hours and 12 volts. Let's click this battery into place so that we can take a deeper dive into the saw. Let's first take a look at the blade itself. This saw uses a 3 3/8 inch blade, and this saw comes pre-installed with a blade, and it's a multi-material blade. Just like with other circular saws, this saw's got a blade guard that can easily be opened and closed with a little lever on the top. One of your first questions might be, what's the cut capacity with this saw? Well, let's take a look at the adjustment features with this item. On the very back of the saw, you're going to find the depth adjustment. With a little twist of this blue knob, you can adjust this from 0 all the way up up to about an inch deep. And once you have your depth in place, you lock it down with that same blue knob. If we look at the front of the saw, you can also see there's an angle adjustment, and you can adjust the angle from 90 degrees all the way to 45 degrees with the simple twist of a blue knob. Also on the very front, you're going to find the third and final blue knob, and this is for the parallel guide. Simply slide that parallel guide into the notch, and then you can tighten it into place with that blue knob. And just like that, you're ready to make some quick cuts referencing the edge of your workpiece. Now I will have to say you're going to have to be careful with those blue knobs. Since they're made out of plastic, they can slip on you, so you're going to have to make sure that you really tighten them down. If we continue to look at the front of the saw, you're going to find a blue button. This button is the arbor lock. This allows you to lock the blade in place to switch out that blade. Let's take a look at the handle of the saw. First off, it's got a very comfortable grip, and if we look at the very top, it's got a trigger lock and a trigger itself. The saw will not start unless that trigger lock, which is located on both sides of the handle, is depressed and the trigger depressed as well. Right above the handle, you're going to find the battery gauge. When the saw is initiated, this battery gauge will light up, telling you how much battery you have left. There's also a button right next to that battery gauge. By depressing this button, it initiates a laser to show you your cut line. Last but not least, you'll see there's a small circular hole right at the foot of the saw. This is for that dust collection chute. With the adapter slid into place, you can easily attach your favorite dust collector. Now that we understand how the saw works, let's use it in combination with that workstation. To use the saw in combination with the workstation, you're going to want to slide the saw into the lip on the rail on the right-hand side of the system. It's this lip that not only secures the saw in place, but also makes sure that it glides perfectly on both of those rails. With our saw now in place, we can begin to take a look at the front of the workstation, which is very similar to a miter gauge. If we look at the very front of this miter guide, you can see it's got two rails to support your workpiece. Not only that, but as you would expect, you can also adjust the angle of your cut. By simply twisting the blue tab on the top, you can adjust your angle from 90 degrees all the way up to 45 degrees in either direction. And it's even got detents at 90 degrees and plus or minus 45 degrees to give you a little bit more accuracy. And this miter guide, when used in combination with the markings on the workstation, can give you a pretty accurate cut. But let's do a few test cuts to see exactly how this thing works. Our first cut will be a cross cut right at 90 degrees. Now, since this cut is a longer cut and hangs off the edge of the workstation, I want to make it just a little bit safer. The first thing that I'll do is I'll grab my workpiece support, which is kind of like a sawhorse and is the exact same height as the workstation, and slide it right underneath my wood. Then I'll grab one of the two clamps. Now, if we look at the workstation itself, you can see there's 3 miter slots running down the entire workstation where you can slide those clamps into. Then once your clamp is slid into place, you can lock your workpiece into position by simply clamping it down. Then we can turn the saw on and cut right through that wood, making our first cross cut. But let's pull our square out, place it right up against that cut to test the accuracy. And for a little handheld circular saw like this, that's pretty good. But let's test out a miter cut. So let's first rotate the miter guide to 45 degrees and tighten it down with a blue knob. Then I can place a piece of wood into the guide, clamp it down, and begin to make the cut. And I'll have to say, as I make this cut, there's very little resistance, and the saw glides perfectly on both of those tracks. But let's test out that 45 with my delve square, and you can see we're just as accurate at that 45 as we were with the 90. Now, we've just shown we can do cross cuts and miter cuts pretty accurately with this tool, but what about bevel cuts? To do bevel cuts, we need to grab those bevel risers. These bevel risers slide onto both sides of your workstations with little tabs that lock into place on the workstation itself. With these risers in place, they raise your material just enough so that your saw blade can completely cut through your material. Simply adjust the angle of your saw, slide it into the 2 rails on the workstation, and begin to make your cut. And as you can see from this angle, how that little bit of raised elevation allows the blade to completely cut through the material. And just like that, we have a seamless miter that could be perfect for trim work. Now, all of this is great, but there's obviously some limitations with this workstation, especially with those rails. First off, the width of your stock can only be a little over 10¼ inches wide. And it obviously can't be very thick, at 3/4 of an inch wide without the risers and 1/2 inch with the risers. So how do you cut some of your most common material, which is 2x material? Well, that's what the last accessory is all about. This is the 2x4 cutting guide. The first thing that we'll do is we'll slide it right over a 2x4. With the guide fully seated onto the 2x4, we'll take one of the clamps and slide it into the guide and clamp the 2x4 in place. And once everything's in place, we've created a ledge on both sides of that 2x4 that we can rest our saw up against. Then it's just a matter of taking the saw and cutting through one side of the 2x4. Once that cut's made, you can flip the 2x4 over and make a cut on the other side. And I'll have to say, with this accessory, all you're going to get is a rough cut at best. Now, it does go through the entire piece of wood, but if we look on the very end, it's completely uneven. So something that I would never use in my woodworking, but I guess it's nice to have that added feature. Now, although not perfect, we have to remember this is only a $149 system. And it might be great for someone that lives in an apartment, as this thing, once it's folded down, takes up very little space. But this thing is probably not for everyday woodworking, more for smaller projects around the house. But it was a lot of fun to check out, but we've got 2 more items from Dremel to take a look at. Before we check out our next item, do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, and share this video, as it truly does help out this woodworking channel. Also, if you haven't already, check out my website, Flynndogwoodwork.com, where you can get access to all sorts of fun woodworking accessories like all the t-shirts that I wear in my videos, and I've just released some new models of shirts. And if any of these Dremel tools we take a look at today interest you, I'll leave links in the description below so that you can go check them out for yourself. And if you'd like to support the channel even further, check out my channel memberships where you can get early access to all my videos as well as 1 member video a week. Now let's get back to those Dremel tools. This is the Dremel 3-in-1 multi-drill. Let's give it a look. 3-in-1, huh? Did you know that there's 3 life stages to making love? Age 18 to 35, try weekly. Age 35 to 60, try weekly. Age 60 to 90, try weekly. So when I first saw this item, it reminded me a heck of a lot of the Festool CXS or the Milwaukee utility driver. Now, I don't expect this Dremel 3-in-1 to be as powerful as those tools, but I did think it was worth taking a look at. If we get this thing out of the box, you can see the design of this tool is quite similar to that CXS and the utility driver. But I think we'll be quite surprised, since this is a 3-in-1 tool, there's some unique features with this drill and driver that the other two just don't have. Let's start off by taking a look at what's included inside the box. First off, you're obviously going to get the drill itself, but along with that, you'll also get that 12-volt 2-amp-hour battery and charger. And it also comes with a variety of different accessories, including a laser level, a charger for that level, some reusable laser putty, as well as some bits. Now, to really understand the unique features of this 3-in-1 drill and driver, we need to take a tour of the tool itself. So let's pop that battery in and start to take a look at it. First off, this tool's got a pretty comfortable grip on it with the trigger start, and one thing that's important for me with a tool like this is it's able to sit on its end when you place it on a surface. Right above that trigger start, you're going to find the directional change, and this is a mechanical one, and it's easily adjusted by simply flipping the tab back or forth. In front of that directional change button, you're going to find the battery indicator, and this is initiated once you pull the trigger. Let's take a look at the front of the tool where the chuck is located. This chuck operates like an impact driver. By inserting a hexagonal bit into the front of the tool, you can lock the bit in place. And the nice thing about this drill and driver kit is it comes with 12 bits to get you started, including 9 driver bits as well as 3 drill bits. If we look right behind that locking chuck, we're going to find the clutch, and this has got a lot of different settings, including a total of 21 driver settings for screws as well as 1 drill setting. On the very front of the tool, right below the chuck, you're going to find a very bright LED light, and this is initiated once you pull the trigger. At the very bottom of this tool, you're going to find a couple of clips on either side. These are perfect for storing your 2 most commonly used bits. And that about covers all of the fundamental basics of this drill and driver, but we need to take a look at some of its unique features that set this drill apart. Let's first talk about the knuckle guard. Now, typically tools like this have a magnetic storage area for your bits, but this thing's got an entirely different purpose. Believe it or not, this knuckle guard on this Dremel 3-in-1 is an entirely incorporated stud finder. To show you how this works, let's grab a false wall that I created for another video. If we look at the knuckle guard, you'll see there's a couple of pads on the very front as well as a tiny little button that initiates the stud finder. By placing this knuckle guard onto your wall, that button will be depressed, initiating the stud finder. Once the stud finder has been initiated, you'll see there's a green arrow telling you which direction to move your drill. Then eventually a red arrow will appear showing you where your stud starts. Then you can mark that area with a pencil, flip the drill around, and repeat the process to find the other side of the stud. Well, I don't know about you, but that is a feature that I think is really cool. I've never seen any other drill and driver that has an incorporated stud finder. But that's not the only secret feature with this tool. The other feature has to do with that laser level. If we look at the very bottom of this drill and driver, you're going to see there's a little void. It's this void that's made for that laser level. You can slide that laser level right into the base of the tool. And with that laser in place, it's completely out of the way, and this tool still stands on its own. And when you need it, you can simply pull it out of the base of the drill and grab some of that reusable laser putty. By taking a couple of pieces of putty and rolling it up into a ball and placing it onto the back of the laser level, you can attach this laser level to your wall. Then all you have to do is to turn the laser on with the button on the top and then use the bubble readout from the levels to make sure that you're perfectly level. And since this level has a vertical and horizontal level, you can use it in either direction, making hanging things like pictures a breeze. And once you're done with a level, all you have to do is to snap it back into the bottom of the tool. But let's test out the power of this drill, as I think this thing is a little more powerful than I initially thought. And I'm gonna go balls to the walls here, using some of the hardest hardwood I have in my shop, and that is hickory. Let's first start off with the drill. So I'm gonna insert the largest bit that came with this kit and then set the drill to the drill setting. And I'll have to say, as I drill through this hickory, this thing isn't giving me any problems at all, and it's easily able to drill right through that wood. But let's drive a couple of screws into this wood, first at the 1 setting, then the 10 setting, and then the 21 setting. As I'm driving these screws in, I'm noticing that the clutch is kicking in once the screw is receiving too much resistance. And it's a little hard to tell here, but there is a slight difference between the depth of each screw here. And part of that is due to me using such a hardwood like hickory. But when I set the tool to the drill setting, it was able to entirely bury that screw. And I repeated this process on a 2x4 just to see how that works, and the clutch worked much more appropriately. In fact, here you can see the differences between the hickory and the pine at the 1, 10, and 21 setting. Well, I don't think I've ever seen a drill and driver like this, with a stud finder, a laser level, as well as the drill and driver itself. And because of all the unique features of this tool, even if you're using it at your house versus your shop, I think this tool is definitely worth taking a look at. But we're not done yet. Let's dive into our next Dremel tool. This is the Dremel multi-tool with application selector. Let's give it a look. Speaking of applications, I heard that my ex just got a job at Hooters. They gave her an application which is just a bikini. They told her to just fill this thing out. So oscillating tools or multi-tools are tools that I didn't even know I needed until I got my very first one. And if this thing is anything like the last 2 Dremel tools we've taken a look at, I'm guessing it's going to have some unique features. So let's get this thing out of the box and take a look at what comes with the tool. So obviously you're going to get the multi-tool itself, but you're also going to get a lot of different accessories. Let's take a look at those. Once again, this tool not only comes with a charger, but it also comes with that same 12-volt 2-amp-hour battery. You'll also get 3 different types of blades that are included with this tool, including a standard blade for wood or metal, a carbide grout blade, as well as a flexible scraper. And finally, you'll get a hook and loop Delta sanding pad along with 6 pieces of sandpaper to get you started. To understand some of the unique features of this multi-tool, let's click into that battery and start to take a look at the tool. First off, let's talk about how we install blades or the sanding pad to this tool. It has everything to do with this blue knob that's on the very top. If we take the tool and begin to twist that blue knob counterclockwise, you'll see that a little hook appears on the very bottom of the tool. Once you have that hook open, you can tilt the blade a little to the left or the right and slide it right underneath that hook. And once that blade's in position, you can see that it snaps right into place, and that's because there's 2 magnets on the very base of the tool. This ensures that your blade stays in place when you go to lock it down by twisting that blue knob clockwise. And the tool will tell you that blade's secure with a little click. Now that we understand how to switch the blades out on this tool, let's take a look at how it works. If we look on the undercarriage of this tool, you can see there's a little tab that you depress to get this tool started. If we look below that blue trigger, you're also going to find a locking tab. This just prevents the tool from starting when you don't want it to. Now let's take a look at what's going on the top of the handle, as there appears to be a lot going on here. At the very bottom of the handle, you're going to find the battery indicator. Once you depress that blue trigger, you can see how much battery you have left. Right above that battery indicator, you're going to find a blue toggle button. Let's start to talk about what that does. This button allows you to toggle between 5 different presets depending on what attachment you have attached to the oscillating tool. This means that this tool oscillates at the perfect setting depending on what attachment is connected to the tool. And for the attachments, there's 4 settings: a scrape setting, a grout setting, a sand setting, as well as a cut setting. And the 5th and final setting is the max range setting, which just makes the tool oscillate at its max setting. And finally, there's one last little blue button on the very top of the handle, and that is the cruise control. Once you pull the trigger and start the tool, you can depress the cruise control button and keep the tool on until you depress that trigger again, allowing you to tackle some of those larger jobs without having to start and stop the tool. And finally, if we look at the very front of the tool, there's a bright LED light to light your way as you go to make your cuts or even sand. So let's take a look at a couple of those attachments, starting off with a scraper, which is an item I don't have with my other multi-tools. With the tool set to the scraper setting, you can get things like stubborn glue off your workbench that you couldn't get off with a putty knife. Now let's try the normal wooden metal blade. With the tool set to cut, we can get some of that detail detail work done that's a pain in the butt to get done with regular saws. And last but not least is the Delta sander. With the tool set to the sand setting, you can get into tight spots that you normally can't get into with the normal orbital sander. And the fact that they've made this tool dummy proof by having all the settings for the oscillation already in the tool make this a no-brainer in my book. Well, I'll have to say I'm a lot more impressed with all of these Dremel blueprint tools than I thought I'd be, especially at this price point and with all the added features that I haven't seen on other similar tools. Well, I really appreciate you joining me today on checking out all of these latest additions to my shop. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, and share this video, as it truly does help out this woodworking channel. And if you haven't checked out my website already, go to flynndoggwoodwork.com, where you can get access to all sorts of fun woodworking accessories like all the t-shirts that I wear in my videos. And I've just released some new models of shirts. And if any of these Dremel tools interest you, I'll be sure to leave links in the description below so that you can go check them out for yourself. Lastly, if you'd like to support the channel further, check out my channel memberships, where you can get early access to all my videos as well as one member video a week. Until next time, take care as always. Yes sir, yes sir. I thought my wife was joking when she told me she wanted to go to a Monkees tribute concert in Switzerland. Then I saw her face. Now I'm in Geneva. That's good. It's a song. How about this one? So I applied to a job the other day when the manager asked me what the 4-year gap was on my resume. I told him Yale. He hired me on the spot. I told him thanks, I really needed that job. One more try. Did you hear about the Hispanic magician that told his audience he could disappear at the count of 3? Yeah, he said uno, dos, and poof. He disappeared without a trace.